Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Women in Motion. This is episode 7. I am delighted today to have both Sharon Eloe and Sylvana Levesque from ITEI on our episode today. Sharon is a tea master and also an ITEI, which stands for International Tea and Education Institute faculty member. And afterwards, I will have Sylvana Levesque discussing spring tea with us. And Sylvana is also an ITEI tea master and training director of International Tea Education Institute in Canada. So thank you both for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting us and inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
My absolute pleasure, ladies. Sharon, I'm actually quite enchanted by purple tea. So to start off with the basics, what is purple tea?
Yeah, so purple tea, there's a lot of really interesting information out there about what it is. And there's a lot of misinformation about what purple tea is, in fact. But the really short answer of it is purple tea is just what happens to a tea plant when it encounters a highly stressful terroir. It develops an antioxidant which changes the color of the leaves to purple. And that antioxidant carries some really unique health benefits with it that we don't see in green leaf tea. So that's just a really short answer to it. But there's a lot of information out there that people try to push it off, saying purple tea is being something else.
Interesting. So thank you for that insight, Sharon. I'll be honest, when I just offhand hearing purple tea, I immediately thought of the blue pea pod tea, which is also known as the butterfly tea. So do you often get people who think that it's also the blue pea pod tea?
Yeah, so the two main myths that I hear about purple tea is either, oh, it's butterfly pea flower tea, which is, they have a very similar antioxidant called anthocyanin. And so they perform in a very similar way, but the butterfly pea flower is not the tea plant. It's just a tisane. It's an herbal tea, whereas purple tea is real tea. It's from the Camellia sinensis plant. And then the second myth that I hear all the time is that it is just a Kenyan tea, which is not true. Kenya is known for having purple tea, and they do produce a purple tea, but it's not the end-all be-all of purple tea.
Got it. So continuing with purple tea, Sharon, how did you become interested in purple tea?
Yeah, so kind of similar to those myths, I had started hearing a lot about purple tea and people talking about it being a Kenyan tea, which is interesting because we don't necessarily associate Kenya with being really well known for a prized kind of golden tea. So I was curious about that. And then I just so happened to be looking in my stash of teas and noticed there was one labeled Purple Buds. And it was a Chinese tea, and it was from a tea company that I really respect. And so I was curious about it, and I opened up the bag and I was looking at it, and I could not tell, like, oh, these leaves don't look purple, and there's a couple buds, but it's not fully budded. So what's going on here? And I wanted to understand more about purple tea, not only to see what was going on with this Kenyan tea, but also just, kind of make sure that this beloved company of mine was still someone I could trust. And so I was asking Sylvana about it in one of our sessions together, and she encouraged me to actually go out and do some research. And from there, I started looking through. I really pride myself in becoming an expert on topics. So I started looking through scholarly journal articles and really digging into the research about what is purple tea, so I can confidently identify what makes a tea purple and what makes it not. Because again, it's such a new tea, and it's so fascinating. There tends to be some deception that comes with marketing. I am happy to say the tea company, I can proudly say it is a purple tea. It's just not what we would have necessarily thought of when we first hear the word purple tea.
Interesting. I definitely think that's great, Sharon, that you pride yourself to become a subject matter expert, and now it seems like you're taking off with purple tea, so that's really great. If you had to maybe think from a different perspective, why should people be interested in purple tea?
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of depends on the person. Not only is it's becoming such a trendy tea. So I
Mhm.
think that if you are either interested in selling tea or you're just a tea fanatic yourself, it's one that we're going to hear a lot more about in the coming decade. It's becoming more and more marketed as the next superfood trend in the world of teas. So I think we're going to hear that bandied about with purple tea. So from that basic point of being in the know in the tea world, I think that's important to know about purple tea. So you can confidently say, this is purple tea versus, oh, this might be misinformation, or it might be a false advertisement with that purple tea. But the other reason why I think it's important just for people in general, kind of digging into the health part, it's marketed as a superfood, but it really is super healthy.
Mhm.
So, like I said, the antioxidant that shows up, anthocyanin, is it carries some really unique and interesting properties that we don't see in green leaf tea. And one of them is that there's research being done that shows that purple tea can help prevent against neurodegenerative brain diseases like Alzheimer's. And
Interesting. Mhm.
yeah, and I think that, originally I was thinking, okay, well, who would be a great audience then for this tea? And you might think an aging population or people who struggle or have that running in their family or are worried about it. But just about a month ago, my husband, who is an avid snowboarder, um, he's very, very safe, very protective, and he always wears a helmet. But he was found on the slope with his helmet cracked, convulsing, and something had happened. He doesn't know. He had a really bad concussion, and that is scary. Concussions are so damaging, and we're just learning about the effects that they can have on the brain. And there's not really much you can do after a person gets a concussion to heal other than rest and, make sure that you're waking up. Um,
Mhm.
but
Exactly.
yeah, so I was so thankful that I knew that about purple tea, and I could do something that felt like it was beneficial by just giving him a lot of that tea so that he could be exposed to those antioxidants and could maybe help him, heal a little bit better than just letting him rest. So I think just from that every person who is interested in alternative health, I think they should be interested in purple tea. And tea experts, of course.
There you go. I think that's a great, definitely some great insight and stories that you share, Sharon. And for myself, I kind of come from an East and West background. So having worked in the emergency room and then also seeing, trauma come in, and also having some background in acupuncture and alternative medicine, I think it's probably from both perspectives. I can see purple tea being very beneficial for both populations, regardless of which side of medicine you're practicing from.
Yeah, it's definitely, sometimes you hear, oh, it's another superfood. And I like healthy foods and I'm interested in nutrition, but I hear superfood, I kind of roll my eyes because everything's a superfood, basically, if it's a fruit or vegetable or grain.
Uh-huh.
Um, but truly it is, it is a superfood. This purple tea and tea in general is really helpful. But just to know that this has that special antioxidant that could support him in his journey was reassuring. I don't want him to, have
Exactly.
brain damage. Ugh.
Definitely want to be living a happy and healthy, harmonious life together. So
Yeah,
100% I
yeah.
understand. So in terms of, purple tea is as the general umbrella tea. If you had to break it down, Sharon, what is your favorite type of purple tea?
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned two already, a purple buds from China and then the Kenyan purple. And I am a person who really enjoys darker teas, dark roasted teas. So I like Chinese black teas, or I tend to really like those cliff or rock oolongs. So I will say a Ziya, which translates as purple buds, Chinese black is probably my favorite I've tried so far.
Okay. So the Zia purple bud Chinese purple teas. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then how can people actually learn about more about purple tea? I'll definitely feel free to mention anything for our episode, and then I'll include the information you mentioned in the episode below, the episode description.
Yeah, definitely. Well, here's the shameless self-promotion. I do teach an ongoing course that people can enroll through ITEI. And just by going to that ITEI website under the tea courses, they'll see a purple tea course. And we have 2 sessions. In the first session, I go through the theory and I teach them all about what are those health benefits, what exactly is a purple tea, as well as what's going on to actually make the plant have that reaction.
Mhm.
And then in our second session, we try some teas and I talk about how to identify a true purple tea versus something that might just be marketed as a purple tea. So I talk about the key tasting notes that will show up in a purple tea so people can confidently purchase purple teas and know, okay, I'm getting the real deal here, which is important when we're thinking about those health benefits.
And everyone loves your courses. I mean, every feedback we get from the students is amazing. Yeah, it's a must-have. I mean, this is self-promotion, as she says, but it's really, I cannot hide the truth. She's fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sylvana. I have so much fun. It's a good break for me throughout the day just to kind of get back into the professional world, and then just talking about tea. It's invigorating. I think, yeah, as a quick side story, with one of the students, we were drinking tea, and this is something Sylvana talks about a lot, is that every person will taste different things when they drink tea, and it's based off of their childhood experiences and other experiences that they've had. And it was just a wonderful moment of thinking about how with tea, there's no wrong answer. It's just really our individual experience, our individual story, and what we bring to the table. And so it's fun to have that moment with students and just help them understand that and open up and experience tea in a way that is a little bit more present and holistic than just chugging back the tea, which is also fun to do, every now and then.
Mhm. Definitely. So it sounds like a very unique and, like you said, invigorating course. So myself as a tea sommelier, having been one of Sylvana's students and of the school, you never know, you might be seeing me signing up. So don't be surprised, Sharon.
Yeah, I'd love to have you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise
And
to be in your class.
yeah. And thank you so much for having me on here and having Sylvana on here as well. It's so much fun just to, again, talk about tea.
Yeah.
Sure. That's
Best thing we do.
No, my absolute pleasure, Sharon. And feel free. I know as we transition into spring teas, anything Sylvana you need to touch base with Sharon on. Otherwise, thank you so much, Sharon, for being here, and we'll definitely be in close contact.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon.
Right.
Have a great wish
Bye
your
for
husband
now.
a good recovery.
Yeah. Thank you. He seems to be all better. So
Okay.
he's definitely,
Good.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Have a great rest of your discussion, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye for now. Right. So, right. So, hi, Sylvana. It's always great to see you.
Hi, Liane, and I'm so honored to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for hosting me.
Of course, it's always, we're in the spring season right now, so I'm so glad that we're able to collaborate in this episode and discuss spring teas. Just to share with our audience again, Sylvana Levesque is training director of ITEI, the International Tea Education Institute, and also a tea master. So I greatly look forward to connecting with her more in this part of our episode on spring teas. So Sylvana, you have been teaching tea for the past 18 years. We always hear about spring tea being so special. Can you tell us why?
That's a great question. Okay. Yes, actually, see, when you think of spring, what comes to mind? Well, we all know, we all say, oh, spring is music to the heart. it's that season of transitioning from winter and into the rebirth of nature, nature wearing all its beautiful colors, right? The blossoming flowers, the trees growing. So it is an exceptional time every year during spring to feel that kind of energy shifting, right? It's even our own energy, not just the nature, right? We are also going into transition. And I thought, tea is not any different. Tea is a product of the nature. So if the nature is going like through this hype and through this fever, the spring fever, right? So that should apply to tea and especially spring teas. And you're right, the question is pretty interesting because you're saying why it is so special. We hear about it and why it is so special. I would say that, yeah, poetically, if, I think about it as a tea taster, I would say that spring tea is music to my soul as a tea lover and as a tea expert, tea taster, tea master, okay? And it's also not just my soul, it's also music to our senses, let alone that I wait 1 year to get a spring tea into my cup. That very breath of spring is going to be in my teacup once a year, because spring is not happening all the year, right? It's just happening once.
Exactly.
And yeah, for tea lovers and experts, and we really are very excited when we get that tea arriving. We have high expectations. We want to discover, oh, what did nature bring us as a gift? And I think it's the most precious gift. Yeah, we owe it to ourselves to try these, if we call ourselves, tea sommelier or tea masters or whatnot. Just tea tasters and tea lovers or tea drinkers, okay? So that's why this is one way of thinking about it a bit outside the science and the agriculture. But if you were to just think about it for a moment, in terms of agriculture, because tea is a product of agriculture, right? It means that there is a tea plant, the Camellia sinensis plant, right? So this tea plant, it goes regardless of the regions where it grows, regardless. It grows through different cycles of growth, right? And it's not just growth, there are also cycles of maybe very little growth, or just the growth has been slowed down to a certain level that it's almost dormant, like sleepy, okay? And we call this the dormancy period, coming from the French word dormir, which means sleeping, okay? So the tea plant goes to sleep. Where does it go to sleep? When I said regardless of the regions, it depends, right? In regions where, let's say, it's tropical or subtropical climate, for the terroir, for the tea plant, in those regions, you don't see too much variations in the seasons, right? The temperatures are not very varying. So what happens there is that it doesn't mean that the tea plant is not stopping at all. But if you go to places such as like regions with temperate temperature, or winters like in the high mountains of China, high mountains of Taiwan, high mountains of India, Darjeeling, okay? In all these places, there is something happening. Comes the fall, the tea plant, the tea bushes need to be pruned, severe pruning, and prepared for the winter sleep. They're going to go to sleep, okay? In very simple words, the tea plant goes to sleep in those regions the whole winter, okay? It's taking time off. What does that mean for anyone listening to this? What does that mean? When the tea plant sleeps, what is it doing? Is it doing nothing? It's doing something. Actually, while its growth is slowed down completely or stopped completely, right? Because it's sleeping, the rooting system of the tea plant is digging and digging and digging in the soil to get all the nutrients, all the essential oils, because every tea has an aroma, right? Where does it come from? It comes from that, okay? From the deeper your rooting system, you're bringing more nutrients, more vital ingredients to the tea plant. And so then what? Okay, what is she going to do? I call her she because I always think of a tea plant as a mother. So what is she going to do with all those nutrients that she's getting from the soil? And she's going to pack itself and store all these nutrients and essential oils in those specific regions where there is winter. And comes the spring, it's going to start sending this food to the top of the tea bush. So the top of the tea bush starts developing the bud and 2 leaves and more leaves. So basically, these leaves have a mission. The leaves and the bud's mission are to do what? They are going to capture the daylight. The daylight is getting longer, right? So they need to give the tea plant a new cycle of life. So she's starting her new cycle. Now, maybe in this explanation, maybe you have other questions, but I will continue to tell you how is that, affecting the tea, the spring tea? How is that affecting the spring tea?
Sure. So specifically, you said, how is it affecting the spring tea? So by, I guess, the flavor aroma at the end after the tea is harvested and properly processed or fired or roasted, the definitely the bouquet and fragrance.
Absolutely. Everything organoleptic. We call it organoleptic, using all our senses. And so that's really something extraordinary that we do as tea lovers and tea experts and tea tasters, right? So yes,
definitely. So thank you for that insight, Sylvana. Shall I skip down to 3, which is I'll re-ask it in a moment, but for what exactly is different in tea manufactured during the spring versus in the summer? I'll go and pick up from there. How does that sound?
Okay.
Good. Okay.
So a tea is manufactured in the spring versus one manufactured in the summer. Is that the question?
Correct.
Okay.
That is the question.
People ask, what's the difference, right? I would say in contrast, let's say tea springs, in contrast with, let's say, teas from other seasons, okay? They actually, spring teas reflect on the season. That's very simple. Okay, they reflect on the season. And as I explained earlier, they're going to go and, what is spring all about? Especially when it comes to tea, it's vegetal, it's fresh, and it's sweet, it's floral, all those nice, things. So why is that? Is it so sweet and floral, especially when you talk about, let's say, some Taiwanese oolongs, such as the Baozongs or the Tiguanyin from China, from Fujian province. There's something, or the Darjeeling, the first flush in Darjeeling, India. Okay, so all of these teas actually go back to what I explained earlier, is that during that winter, the tea plant packed the vital ingredients, and she's going to distribute all that what she packed and stored into the rooting system. It's going to be redistributed and going up to what we call a flush. What is a flush? Okay, when we say, oh, I'm getting a Darjeeling first flush, what does it mean? Okay, the first flush is basically when you see a bud and 2 leaves showing up at the top of the tea bush. Okay, so for the tea growers, this is the moment for them to start thinking about harvesting, because they want to send you spring teas, right? So these spring teas, they need to be harvested. And that's when you get that, what we call first flush in the Western world, and in the tea industry. Of course, in China, they have different words for it, but it means the same thing. It means that right after that winter dormancy, the tea bush wakes up and it gives you that first flush. So your bag of spring tea, guess what? That very, special, very special tea, because it's packed with all those nutrients. It's packed with aroma, freshness, right? It's going to come to you from that first flush, whether it's from Darjeeling in West Bengal, whether it's in Taiwan, high mountain teas over 1,000 meters, whether it's in China, in Fujian. Okay, so that's what a first flush is. It's what Mother Nature is giving you as its most precious gift when it comes to spring teas. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you, Sylvana. Definitely helps to continue to paint the picture of the tea experience, a spring tea experience, I should say, for myself and for our listeners.
Thank you.
My next question is, let's see, are spring teas more expensive than the tea produced in during other seasons?
Yeah, oftentimes people say, why should I pay more for spring teas? What is so special about them to be? Well, first of all, like I said, spring happens once a year. And if it happens once a year, unlike, for example, if you go to regions such as Assam in India, where we produce some of the finest black teas of the world, right? And so that's not a region where the tea bush is going to sleep all winter, okay? It's a different climate, different terroir. The tea bushes are going to be productive, and they're going to be, if I can use the verb, flushing, okay? So they're going to do a first flush, they're going to do a second flush, a third flush, and so on. So there's more productivity in quantity. You're getting more teas, more yield out of your tea plantations than what you do in countries where you only get that spring tea because it slept in the winter. So when I ask for for instance, a Longjing tea from Zhejiang province in China, it comes in different grades, and people wonder why this very special grade, okay, costs, I don't know, $3,000 a kilo, versus another grade, it's still from Zhejiang province, and it costs $200 a kilo. So why is it so expensive? Not all spring teas are expensive, by the way. Okay, you got to be careful. Because so the reason why it's expensive, it's more complicated than what you could ever, or I could ever explain in your podcast. But I could tell you that in China, it is much more complicated than just saying it's a spring tea. And, China is so big that when you say it's a spring tea, ask yourself the question, is spring happening at the same time in all the regions of China where they can make a green tea, produce a green tea? So that is complex on its own, right? And then you add to that things such as what comes to mind, the harvesting calendar, right? For spring teas, we all think that, okay, it's going to happen starting, I don't know, end of March, early April. But, in China, they follow even a special calendar. It's the lunar calendar based on the moon, whether it's a full moon, whether it's a starting moon, the end of the moon. Oh my God, it's so complicated. And their grades, they have to do also with not only the temperature, because you're shifting from winter to spring. It has to do with also the maturity of the tea leaves of the spring, because the first week of spring, the tea leaves are very small and the buds. And then the second week, the leaves get more mature and so on, but still it's spring tea. And they have very poetic names in their culture, such as saying, this is a spring tea that it has to be harvested, let's say, before April 6th, before the rain starts. Or so it is, and that's why, our students, as you know, they enjoy discovering all these things about, the Chinese mysterious way of presenting all their teas, and especially spring teas. And And if you go, let's say, to, again, Darjeeling is a wonderful example on those, high elevations there. You get a second flush, right, in Darjeeling. You get a second flush, let's say, in June. And people wonder, is the second flush going to be less expensive than the first flush? Okay. Yes, because you get more teas. The leaves are getting bigger. The leaves are getting, more productive, the bushes, right? You get more buds, more leaves. So the quantity is limited and rare for the spring teas. That's why the price is higher. It's the offer and the demand. You have limited edition teas, especially the very fine ones, versus the demand, right? And that's why the price is going to play on that. And what else I could tell you as an example? So yeah, Darjeeling, some of the Taiwanese teas that go into competitions, spring teas. If you go, let's say, for Baozhong teas in the spring, and they have a smell of heaven. You're transported into a garden with the freshness, with the flowery, for those who like that. And this is not about flavored teas. This is a natural tea plant giving you all of this wonderful perfume, okay? Because of those essential oils that come in those high mountain teas, okay? Because they're sleeping in the winter.
Definitely. Sounds so beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's see. So for our listeners, Sylvana, and also I would say future tea students, how can people learn more about this topic if you'd like to share?
Well, at ITEI, we've been teaching tea for almost going to be, I would say 17 years. Yeah. And, we have courses that come with certification. You have to study for a longer time, such as, becoming a certified ITEI tea master, become a master tea sommelier, or become a tea steward. So these are certification classes. In every one of those classes and programs, of course, we touch on tea production, tea grades, and tea harvesting, and tea calendars, and whatnot, and quality, and most of all, tea tasting. How do we taste tea in different cultures? So if people have time and the passion and dedication to do those certification classes, they're welcome to discover all what we spoke about in depth, okay, in the classes. If not, we also have very short duration classes or workshops. They can do them online. They could just call the instructor and reserve their time based on their agenda and time and flexibility. We have wonderful, even we could create a program just for a group that is interested in certain things, okay, and discovering something that they cannot find information about. So, our website, itei.ca, is packed with courses and workshops, and there is for everyone, for those who are very busy, those who want to take more time and study tea more deeply and be certified. And, so we welcome everyone, even if you have a debutante passion for tea, please give us a call or go on our website and fill out the contact form. And then we will be happy to, just share our tea knowledge and experience, because at the end of the day, it's nice to speak to people who have been there for a long time in the tea industry. And may I just add one thing I forgot about, if you give me a time. See, for 18 years now, almost, we have a special list, a reservation list, because our major tea connoisseurs who are from ITEI, who become tea scholars and they have their own tea businesses and tea houses. And so they like to reserve a year ahead for three things. They reserve for some Taiwanese teas, they reserve for some Chinese teas, the first spring teas, they reserve for Darjeeling teas, the first flush, and they reserve for something from Japan called Shincha. Shincha means new tea, the spring tea, Mother Nature gift. So they say, I don't want to, it's like almost having a wardrobe just with winter clothes and coats and nothing from the spring. I need my spring teas. Okay. But one last thing I could tell you, in some places, they want to sell you the spring teas ahead of time. And they say they're ready to ship. And you figure, wow, this is readier than the calendar time. Why they have them before? That's because some cultivated varieties, like the cultivars, they could be programmed to give you that first flush before the other ones. So be careful. Just because spring teas are considered to be the best teas, it doesn't mean that they're all, so that's why you need more studying, a bit of education to understand and be able to identify what is good and what is worth your time and the money and the taste that you're going to get.
Absolutely. Thank you for that insight, Sylvana. I can say for myself, reflecting back and also to our listeners, it was being in the tea sommelier program was definitely a very enjoyable experience. Tea is basically passed to me from generation to generation, but also I felt like a more enlightened person after being part of the tea program at ITEI. So
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it. And I hope our listeners will be interested to join in and even inquire and just ask some questions. But I'll make sure to include your website and Instagram, all the contact information I have in the episode description.
Yes, thank you so much. Even that you're not from Canada, from outside of Canada, we welcome, we have students from around the world. So that's why we're international. Okay.
That is amazing. Thank you again, Sylvana. I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening as well. And hopefully we meet you on other also topics if you like to have any other topics being clarified. Okay.
Sure thing. Sounds like a great plan. Thanks again, Sylvana. Bye for now.